Okay, let's now take a look at our listener's question, which this week comes from Danny McGhee from County Monaghan. Danny's a good friend of the show, and thanks to him for sending the question in this week. So let's hear it now.
Hi Tino, many thanks for the opportunity to ask this question. Is Brendan Rodgers' legacy ruined due to the manner of his leaving, or did Peter Lawwell and company facilitate his exit due to their need for total control? It's also pertinent at this moment, given the way Ange and Nicholson are operating now, complete contrast to what we've had over the last 10, 15 years. Many thanks and continued success with your podcast.
Yep, so as you heard from Danny, his question there is twofold. So firstly, did Brendan Rodgers ruin his Celtic legacy by the manner in which he left the club, or was a big part of his exit a result of effectively a power struggle between him and Peter Lawwell? Secondly, how much is that type of relationship in stark contrast to what we're seeing now and what is clearly a very strong relationship between Ange Postecoglou and Michael Nicholson? James, your initial response to Danny's question?
There's a lot of factors in this one. Two big egos. That's the thing. You know, it's Lawwell against Rodgers. Two massive egos, and Lawwell was told Rodgers is your manager, not Lawwell signing Rodgers. No, Dermot Desmond said that's your new manager, and Lawwell's ego not like that one bit. So you start off in that vein, and then you've got to back him, and then you start changing the dynamic, and you start feeding them players. If I'm going to come down on a side on it, it's very hard because they're both out for number one is the problem. Lawwell is a huge Celtic fan, I'll never take that away, but this isn't really something that none of them have behaved in the way that you or I would, or any Celtic fan outside of those two Celtic fans. For Rodgers' sake, he's a huge Celtic fan. Was it Tommy Bones and Danny McGhee, all that kind of stuff, not too sure about that. But Lawwell is an ambitious guy, always has been. He'd taken that knockout side of the EPL from Liverpool, and this was his route to salvation. I think he was planning that for a year and a half hence, but the situation with Lawwell became so untenable that when he got the first sniff of an option to go, he took it. It was toxic between the two of them, and something had to give. That's a long story short.
Yeah.
All right, Miff.
Miff, you're chuckling away there.
Oh, nearly let that be. Anyway, sorry. Yes, chuckling away, James. That was an excellent summation. Well, yes, it was a long-winded way of saying Rodgers was successful, but he's also a rat.
Succinct.
I think you can say both. It was a rat move doing what he did. He left us completely high and dry at a really critical point, despite all his success prior to that. However, we should also recognise that we were on a downward trajectory around quality in the squad. Lawwell, whilst his ego might not have liked Rodgers being appointed, he had presided over some horrible transfer dealings. Really, really cheap. We come off the back of Rangers not being in the league and just really cheap loan signings that aren't really any quality to a core squad that were crying out for a bit of help. Dyla was working with one hand tied behind his back. Rodgers came in, instant change in the squad mentality. You could call it the bad apples were managed out pretty much immediately, which led to a change in the squad's attitude towards the coaching and what we enjoyed for those 2.5 seasons. Was just unbridled success. Failings in Europe for Rodgers. I think Rodgers' time, when you look back, you'll say yes, he was an unmitigated success as a Celtic manager, but to answer Danny's question, and thank you for the question, Danny, I feel yes, his legacy is wasted by the way that he exited. I don't think you can paint it in any other way. For me personally, that led us on a road that was just completely unnecessary. It could have been done differently. I agree with James's point. He was working his ticket before that, clearly. I accept his working conditions probably weren't great, but to leave in the manner in which he did, I just felt was a terrible move, and I don't forgive him for it.
Yeah, and you've always been quite vocal on that, and you continue to be so. I mean, yeah, to answer the first part at least of the question, quite specifically, did Rodgers ruin his Celtic legacy by the manner in which he left? I mean, looking at the facts, just in terms of what he achieved, so what his legacy is effectively. So he was appointed as Celtic manager on the 20th of May 2016, won back-to-back trebles, including an unbeaten treble in his first season, the Invincibles. This also included a record 69 games unbeaten domestically, which was finally ended by Hearts in December 2017. He won a further League Cup, of course, to make it 7 trophies from 7 before his underhand departure to Leicester City midway through the 2018-19 season. So I think it was actually February 2019. He did, you can't argue, he set the wheels in motion for what would eventually become a historic quadruple treble. And in terms of individual players that he worked with, I would say he resurrected the Celtic careers of guys like Scott Brown, James Forrest, and also played a big part in the development of players like Kieran Tierney and Callum McGregor. So Miff, whether you agree with the manner of his departure or not, his achievements can't just be wiped from the history books, can they?
I'm not asking that's the case. The context is that had he left in an amicable manner, his legacy would be without question. However, the manner in which he left, the timing in which he left, can't be forgiven, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what everyone, particularly at the time, was looking for was, just keep the head, play us through to the summer, sign a pre-contract, even if you want, and plenty of time. What did he really do in Leicester between February and May? I'll put it that way. Was it significant in there?
Not much. So just to push back as such, his argument after making the move was that Leicester said they wouldn't wait for him, so it was now or never type thing. That's
the part I don't buy at all. Is his agent no any good at his job at all? Because you say, if you want this guy, you get him in the summer, give you all the prep. You could even have worked a deal with Celtic, but there's going to be a bit of consultancy from Rodgers to Leicester. They say, I need this, I need that, I'm going to assess this and that. And I appreciate you don't want a manager who's not fully focused, but it'd have been better than just leaving in the middle of the night, as Miff says. That was underhand behaviour, but it's the game we're in. If you're looking to find a split between, and this is the crux, I suppose, of the question, good question for Danny, because it's it's multifaceted. But the crux of the question is, who do you blame for losing 10 in a row? Right, this is where it kind of comes to, and the two of them are hand in hand on it. I don't really blame Neil Lennon. Blame Neil Lennon's agent a wee bit for not having him resign quicker, but it's really, this is a Rodgers Law production in terms of where we ended. But beyond Rodgers leaving, the pattern continued, and that is Law. So the majority for me sits with Law, because the attitude of just try and do it in the cheap, just try and squeak it by, and signing guys in the last minute, signing guys at once you're out of the Champions League, all of these things continued until it had gone too far, and then 10 in a row was gone, and it was just, we're in absolute shambles, and just we couldn't have got luckier than signing Ange Postecoglou, because that could have gone another way as well. I think there's been, at that point, there's been a real, actually it's Dom McKay's leaving, there's been a real change in attitude at Celtic, and it's modern, fresh thinking that we didn't have, and if we had 5 years ago in the run up to 10 in a row, we'd have squished it. Yeah,
and just while you're in that train of thought, so to ask you quite specifically, do you put any of Rodgers' exit, timing of the move and all that stuff, February 2019, do you put any of that down to Peter Lawwell, or is this all just on Brendan Rodgers? Does he have to take full responsibility for that? We don't know the working conditions, we don't know how broken down the relationship had potentially come at that point, so is it all on Rodgers just being single-minded?
I think a lot of what put Rodgers in the frame of mind that he had to leave is all on Lawwell, but every man's responsible for his own actions, and it's Rodgers that could have said, yep, I'm this big Celtic fan guy, I can see this through to the end of the season. There's always a way, to work that contract with Leicester that you get the job in the summer. So I don't believe that it was a go now or nothing,
And in the fairness of full disclosure, I think signing a Shved was maybe the tipping point as well.
Maybe, amongst others.
Shved was kind of brought to him, like, there you go. He was asked a question at press conference. He said, it's a deal the club are looking at or something.
Yeah, he said, I've got 1 million wingers, I don't need more wingers, as he was being announced. Yeah, there was lots of stuff. I dare say there's some stuff that we've heard about as supporters. There's so many things we won't have heard about, things that have gone on behind the scenes, and maybe it was just a step too far. Maybe something was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Rodgers said, I can't work under these conditions. I suppose we'll never really know.
I think we will in the end. There'll be a book about that in 3-4 years or something.
Well, maybe so. The other point you made there, James, is that it's kind of just a modern game. There's no sentimentality in football, these days, and ambition will often trump everything. Now, I totally agree, James. Peter Lawwell is 100% a Celtic fan, Brendan Rodgers is first and foremost a Brendan Rodgers fan, and everything else falls second.
I think they both are. Lawwell fans and Rodgers fans, not of each other, of themselves.
But we see it frequently, if that's part of the game these days.
We do, but see if Ange does it, man, forget about even asking me back on. I'll just be done. If Ange does it to us, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'll be chucking every pair of grey trousers that I want out.
Yeah, I mean the example just now, topical is the young lad Anthony Gordon. So he's getting a lot of grief from, he's leaving Everton. So I think he's been at Everton since he was 11 years of age. He's now 21 or something, and he's leaving to sign for Newcastle, and he is getting all the backlash for that. Apparently he refused to train a few times to engineer this move, and he's just the latest guy. This is part of football. I don't know if he's an Everton fan at heart or whatever the story is, but this happens week on week, month on month, every other transfer window, and I suppose it stings a bit when it's so close to home. It's such a pressured time in Celtic's history, and as you say, James, the underlying question, Danny's not mentioned it, but the underlying theme is the 10 going bust.
Yeah, of course it is. But I think fans can be very mature about these things. If the situation's right, nobody gave Kieran Tierney any stick for going. Well, actually, I think a few idiots did, right?
Some folk did.
But
there's no doubt. There's some folk
not anyone with any sense. And I think you're talking about 90-95% of Celtic fans were going, that's good for the boy. The Gordon situation at Everton is just, that's not even a conversation. His agent saying, do you want to stay amongst this absolute madness, or do you want to go to Eddie Howe's Newcastle? Mm-hmm. You could take a view that I don't want to play for a team like Newcastle for other reasons, but Eddie Howe is an attractive manager to play for, and it's going to drive his career on. There's no debate on that,
I know. I mean, the alternative for Anthony Gordon is you just stay at Everton for the rest of your career to keep some mad fans happy. Aye. And that can't be the move either. I mean, the bigger question then, so just to finalise on this point of Danny's question, if they were to decide to return to Celtic Park one day, whenever that might be in the future, should Brendan Rodgers, and I want to throw Neil Lennon into this as well, two guys who achieved so much for the club on and off the park in Lennon's case, should they be afforded a warm welcome by the support? Listen, and whether that's next year, 5 years, 10 years, at some point, should they be able to come back? Say we're celebrating the quadruple treble, the anniversary of that, for example.
Time will heal. Absolutely. Time will heal it, I think. But I suppose it's just down to how you feel personally. Season ticket holder, go every week, watch your team. It's your team, that's why you feel so emotive, or why it's so emotive, that's why you feel so emotional about it, because it's happening to your team. With the greatest respect to Everton, Anthony Gordon, Newcastle could not give a toss. It's when it happens to your own team that it becomes that type of issue. Gordon's probably not helped himself with getting a Princess Di hairdo, to be fair, but I think in the context of Rodgers, would I welcome him back? I suppose I'm torn on that, because whilst I have made my feelings pretty clear on it, I also need to respect the enjoyment that I was given by his teams. Take my son to a cup final, win the double treble. We were at the double treble. We went to a few of the semi-finals at Hampden as well through that run. The initial Champions League, the 3-3 draw at Man City is probably as good an atmosphere as I've experienced at Celtic Park, closely followed by the Rangers game. So there were definite positives there. I need to be mindful of that as well. But ultimately, it's just right now. It still heavily rankles me. Lennon's a bit different. You'd need another full hour on the Lennon thing. I've got a lot of things I would need to get off my chest along that.
I can hear it in you, Miff. I can hear it.
No, I'm not ready for that.
I think time to...
Yeah, just to summarise, I think too soon for Miff. What about you?
I think time heals Lennon's situation, and I was bitterly disappointed. Not only the fact that, Lawwell's offered him a job. What's he going to do? Say no? So he's got to take the job, right? But we all knew, we were all on that bus coming out of Hampden, we all knew it was wrong, right? Fine. It was more the fact that he knew he'd lost control. It wasn't going to happen. This is like, I think I put something on the group about September time or something. I said, panic now and avoid the rush, because it's time to panic. And the story went that Lennon saw that. He's an astute football guy. He knew what was going on. He went, I'm not able to do this with this group of players. And he's a Celtic fan. He wants 10 in a row as much as anyone. And he went to make the move to resign, and his agent stopped him, which is his agent's job, because he's looking to get fired and get paid. But then Lawwell, being Lawwell, wouldn't fire him because they were trying to save the money and they were doing all the fans aren't controlling us, all these things that come into play. But the difference between Lennon and Rodgers is Lennon had huge stock in the bank and will continue to do so as a Celtic legend, and the word's used too often. It wasn't for Neil Lennon. He's done a lot as a player and a manager, and he's a genuine fan, and that's a big difference as well. He is a genuine Celtic fan. I don't think time will save Rodgers. I think if you brought him out for the Paradise, the raffle,
Paradise
windfall at half time in 20 years, he would get annihilated. I really do, and that's not really a personal feeling. I admire him as a manager. I think he should just take the walk for Leicester and get on it, and I think he'll go on to do good things in the game, big things. He's a talented guy, and he brings that professionalism that we certainly required as we were trying to mature a wee bit as a club. Foundations put in place by Dyla, to be fair, but I don't think, just given the manner of his departure, he was two-faced about it all, and you don't tell lies about Danny McGhee and expect to be forgiven.
James, as long as I'm here on this podcast, you'll be here, and
you've changed your tune.
That's all that matters.
Half an hour there.
Until 10 minutes time.
Yeah, and I mean, I just wonder, James, 2043 half-time windfall brought to you by Brendan Rodgers.
Wait a minute then. How do you feel?
If I was trying to skip that one.
No.
I'm not sure. I do think just you've got to put into context what they achieved first and foremost. Both of them, both very successful managers, a lot of trophies between the two of them, and certainly the on-field stuff from Neil Lennon. I feel stronger that Lennon should be afforded the legend status. Absolutely, James, I agree with you there. I also feel that somewhere down the line, Brendan Rodgers oversaw part of one of our most successful eras as supporters, and there's something in that, but I'm probably a wee bit towards where you're at, Miff, in terms of it's certainly too soon just now. Like last week, you skirted the question, Magic 8 Ball, ask again later. Ask me again in 3, 4, 5 years' time and we'll see. I'd like to think we could forgive and forget. Maybe we're better than that, maybe we're not, I don't know. Definitely Neil Lennon should be afforded the legend status, and maybe Rodgers in years to come. But
even as a broader question, even if all three of us could for both of those guys, one of the things to talk about is would the fans, the greater group of Celtic fans, and I think in time Lennon would. Honestly, I really think Rodgers would be pelted if he came on the pitch.
Maybe so. Final point on it. Fergus McCann get booed at Celtic Park once upon a time.
Mob mentality. And now, Scottish media.
Now you ask the support by and large, they're saying he should have a statue out front. So time changes everything. And I just think that's the point. It might change things over time. You never know. Brendan Rodgers may come out post-managerial career and jump on the redemption train and see where he goes.
Well, the interesting part is the part that James mentioned around if we get some sort of disclosure from either Lawwell or Rodgers as to what actually happened in the working conditions that were there, that shine a different sort of, or a more intense light on it, we could maybe all jump to different conclusions, but still, without that fact, without knowing that, based on the timing and what was at stake at that time, we can't forget that the 9th or the 8th hadn't even been won. 9th, 8th.
We're just about to secure the 8th.
We're just about to secure the 8th. The 8th still hadn't been won at that point. We were ahead, but
Lennon did a great job securing that.
Aye. Oh, why did we need to get back there, man? Jeez.
You're not ready.
Oh, jeez.
It's a question worth debating. It will continue to be debated, for years to come, and it's a cracking question. Just to close out on it and to spend a very short bit of time here on part 2 of Danny's question. So, without knowing exactly how it's all playing out behind the scenes at the moment, what we're now seeing is what appears to be a very warm relationship and a very positive relationship between Ange, Michael Nicholson and the various other support staff at the club. You never know how quickly things can change in football, but for now, James, things do seem to be in a very harmonious place, and everyone does seem to be pulling in the same direction.
I mean, it's just, you don't judge people on what they say, you judge them on what they do, and everything that Ange and Nicholson are doing, we can see it with our own eyes. That guy's showing a bad attitude. Gone. I need somebody left back in. These things are genuinely happening. I need a more professional youth structure is coming in. We've got 2 new guys, McManus, no day, taking over the team there. Everything that we're looking for is happening. It's the action you're seeing. So you can give it paper talk and PR and all these things. They don't cover action. The action is there. We can all see it. It's working. As to your point, can change it on a dime if somebody comes in and looks for Ange for mad money. And guys are saying, he's in a 12-month contract and all these things. We need to sign him down in 5 years. That just means more compensation. Doesn't mean anything in terms of where we are. Ange has said quite clearly he wants to be challenged, and once the challenges fade, he'll look for something new because he needs that in his life. I think that can come as quickly as the end of next season, as he's going through a Champions League campaign. So Celtic will be. He seems like the kind of guy. He's not going to flit in the middle of the night. He'll be working with Nicholson and saying, that was a great Champions League campaign, but that's ticked a big box for me. I want to try something new. Yeah. I think we'll know about it in advance.
Cheers, James. Miff's crying. You had him there at the prospect of the end of next season.
This is reality.
Last point, Miff. So I was going about how the fact that football people should be left to make football decisions. I think that's what's happening just now with Ange and his support team, and that the business mind should focus on the business side of the club. I'm not sure that's what happened, at the time when Peter Lawwell was CEO, but it does look like it's happening now, and I think we're seeing the full benefits of it. Absolutely.
Unified boardroom throughout the team is what we've been crying out for, and it's what was sorely missing for so many years. Probably contributed to those are the tough times that both those managers we were discussing previously have had, but ultimately we've got the right man at the helm now. He's someone who's just unified the whole club, and probably as warmly received a Celtic manager I can remember, probably since Martin O'Neill.
Yeah, it's another great question, plenty to debate as I said, and thanks again to Danny for sending that one in. If you want to submit your question to us for discussion on any future shows, then you can do so in one of three ways. Number one, you can leave a voicemail directly on our website via the microphone icon on the bottom right of any page of the site. Number two, you can send us a message on social media at our Twitter, Instagram or Facebook page. Or finally, you can email me directly on tino@thecelticexchange.com.